Hello, everybody. It's Wild Man Z here for my 2022 library tour. I believe this is my 15th edition. I have some books here. Some I've read, some I haven't. Some are TBRs, as they say. It's blizzarding outside, so hence the hat. I was just outside shoveling, and I have hat head. This is Chimera by John Barth. I was on a run of reading postmodernism earlier this year. I read Gravity's Rainbow. I reread Slaughterhouse Five by Kurt Vonnegut and a few other shorter works. And I kept running across John Barth in reviews of good people to read in terms of postmodernism. So I want to give him a try. I'm also going to try to read some more Thomas Pynchon. Another thing I want to read is, after reading Ishiguro, is I want to read more Japanese literature. So I wanted to get a bunch of short stories. That way I can figure out who some authors are and some styles that I like, because I don't know anything about it. So I figure read some shorter works first. This is the Penguin Book of Japanese Short Stories. So I want to take a look through this. And I won't necessarily read them all at one shot. I like to read a few short stories and then move on to something else, sort of toggle back and forth. I figured Penguin would be a good place to start for a Westerner who's not familiar with that culture's writing. I bought this because I went to University of Vermont, and the one of the curators from there, I think he's a former curator, wrote how do you get a whale in Vermont? The unlikely story of Vermont's official state fossil, which is a whale fossil. I used to go to that museum all the time, so a lot of the nice fossils and other displays that they would have there, and I'm curious to read it. Not only is it from my school and I live there, but just interesting to read about. Here's a bodybuilding book that I got for Christmas. I have not read it yet. That's Dave Draper on the cover, and he wrote the book. It's called Iron in My Hands. I used to read a lot of his, he used to write for magazines like Muscle and Fitness and so forth, write articles on training, but his writing style was it was not the typical bodybuilding writing style. It was very elaborate, ornate, and he would infuse a lot of philosophical digressions in there into his writing, which was very interesting for Muscle magazine. So I'm curious to see one of his own, a whole book by him. He passed away recently, so it was a really cool gift to get in memory of a guy who he was into bodybuilding. Really, before I started training, he was really big in the '60s and '70s. He was in the movie Let's Make Waves with Shannon Tate and Tony Curtis. Here's something I read over the summer, and I really enjoyed it. It's the complete stories of Flannery O'Connor. I think she wrote two novels as well. I'm going to read them. This was absolutely fantastic. I had only read one of these stories before. It was, let's see here. It wasn't Good Country People. It was A Good Man Is Hard to Find. That's what I read when I was younger. The story with the misfit. And I read that. That's one of the better stories in here, as long as the Good Country People. But they're all really good. It's Southern Gothic. It's grim. There she is on the back cover, a portrait of her. She died very young. She died in her 30s. And boy, to think what she would have been able to write if she had kept living. It's fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and I'm going to read her novels for sure within the next year or two. I read this book. I bought this off Amazon at normal price. By Frank Wilczek. He's at MIT. He's a professor of physics there. He got the Nobel Prize some years back for describing the strong force rigorously through what was called asymptotic theory. This is a really good book if you read popular books on physics and want to get some more things that are non-mathematical but just conceptual on things like time dilation, spatial contraction, and so forth. Also, really good explanation about trying to explain general relativity, how we include into things like GPS and so forth. Because a lot of people think that these theories don't have any real life applications, which is wrong. I mean, our understanding of modern chemistry, for example, is wholly dictated on understanding the quantization of electrons, Fermi exclusion principle, and things like that. Chemistry really wasn't a science until physics gave us an understanding of the quantum mechanics of how, for example, electrons behave. Here's a book that I want to read. I keep hearing about Werner Vinge being the best and one of the best current or recent sci-fi writers. This is called The Fire Upon the Deep, which I hear is a really good book. I think it's part of a series, but you can read it by itself, which I like. I'm not a big, fantasy readers tend to be they always like to read series. I like to read more of one or two shot books. I'm not big into reading series unless it's something really fantastic. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I read a lot of Hermann Hesse back in the day, but never read this. The Glass Bead Game, also known as Magister Ludi. I hear that this was one of his more surreal, potentially a little bit of sci-fi in here, or fantasy-oriented books, although I consider, when you read the Steppenwolf, I would consider that to be sort of surreal as well. I don't have any of those books here. I read those all as an undergraduate from the library. And when I was younger, I don't have a big library like some of these guys on YouTube. Really impressed me because I was in college for so long. I always had a library. I could just go in there and take out various editions of all the great books. And so I never collected a lot of books. Plus, I knew when I was going to undergrad that I was going to be moving and going to grad school somewhere else. And when I was in grad school, I figured I'd go somewhere else for a postdoc. So I've been moving a lot through my younger, even my early middle ages, around associated with academics. Always had libraries. Now that I don't have a really good library associated with me, I am buying more books. So these are really books that I've collected over the last couple of years. Alexander Dumas, Between Two Kings, translation by Lawrence Ellsworth. I think he's the man who translated The Red Sphinx. I think this is some of the continuous parts of 20 years after that have been retranslated and compactified into a shorter work. I'm not sure, but anything by Dumas, including a new translation, I'm interested in reading because I love his writing so much. Look forward to reading it, as well as The Red Sphinx. Diaspora by Greg Egan. This is a work of hard sci-fi. I've only read him in short story form, and I liked his short stories so much. They were so gritty and realistic sci-fi, if you will, that I decided to buy one of his full-length books, and I bought this off of Amazon full price, and I'm looking forward to reading it. It says a conceptual tour de force by New York Times. He has a whole bunch of good reviews on here, and maybe I'll review it once I read it. Hybrid Creatures by Matthew Baker. I read most of, at this point, his books out of Why Visit America. They're very surreal, twisted, but in a good way, depictions of current or near future American life. He mixes a little bit of sci-fi in there, but he's definitely somebody who likes to poke fun at our modern reality. And he's a really good writer. He's got great style. I really enjoyed him. The stories always have a twist ending to them, and he's kind of a young, hip guy, new writer. And I came across him in Lightspeed online. He wrote a story called Life Sentence, and it was arguably sci-fi and really cool. It's about a guy who got as a prison sentence in the near future, or an alternate future of, or an alternate reality of ourselves. They kind of wipe your brain for various crimes. If you did something minor like a burglary, maybe they wipe 2 years of your memory. If you did something less severe like jaywalking, maybe wipe you a week back. This guy, whatever he did was really bad. They gave him a complete wipe. And he goes home to his family after going to the center, and they're standing in the driveway. He's like, who are these people? And it's about a man refining himself. And the question is, does he ever want to go back to his old self? And it has a really nice ending. So it's a story I really enjoyed, both the writing and the story. So I look forward to reading more of his works. I read pretty much 80% of the first collection. So I think this is actually an older collection if he has Hybrid Creatures. So on that note, I'm running out of time. I'm going to try to carb up a little bit because I'm going to go out and try to shovel some more snow. That's my exercise for today. It's actually pretty hard cardio. You know, it's about a foot snow, and I have an acre property, and my driveway sits well back, and I try to shovel it by hand. And so it's a lot of aerobic and anaerobic exercise. So on that note, I'm going to rest a little bit and then go outside and work for about an hour, and we'll see how it goes. Everybody have a good day. Wild Man Z out. Take care.